India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has used an independence anniversary speech to express his outrage over violence carried out against women. Addressing a rally in the capital Delhi, Mr. Modi demanded tough punishment for the perpetrators. His comments come as the country is rocked by mass protests after last week's rape and murder of a young female doctor in Kolkata. In remarks apparently aimed at the West Bengal authorities responsible for Kolkata, where the hospital is located, Mr. Modi said state governments need to take crimes against women seriously. He said those involved in such demonic acts must face strict punishment. The protests by thousands of medical staff have been fueled by accusations of an attempted cover-up at the hospital where the 31-year-old woman was brutally killed.
Whatever transpired in Bangladesh makes us concerned as a neighboring country. I hope the situation gets normal there soon. 1.4 billion Indians feel concerned and want the safety of Hindus and minorities to be ensured. In the coming days we hope to contribute to the journey of Bangladesh's development as their well-wishers. Everyone should bring their opinions to the table, so that the laws that differentiate on the basis of religions and are discriminatory in nature, such laws should not have a place in modern society. Our times demand that this country should.
We hear about rape cases in India all the time. Very few cases get highlighted. In this case, so many people have gathered to protest. Justice should be delivered to the family of the victims as soon as possible. The most severe punishment should be awarded. A CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation, inquiry should be ordered. It is important that the rapists should be scared.
We apologize for that clip from Narendra Modi. It was obviously the wrong clip, but someone who's pretty clued on with what's going on is Arise International correspondent Faith Orr, and she joins me now in the studio, and it carries a lot more weight, Faith, doesn't it, when the Prime Minister talks about it, especially on India's Independence Day?
Well, exactly, and as you just heard there, this is one of a number of topics that Narendra Modi addressed in his speech to the nation to mark the Independence Day. He is also concerned about what's happening in the neighbouring country, Bangladesh. But when it came to the issue of violence against women, he didn't reference the particular case that people are most recently upset about. He didn't discuss what happened to the 31-year-old doctor. He spoke about violence against women much more generally. He described it, he says there's anger for atrocities that are committed against our mothers and sisters. There's anger in the nation about that. He says crimes against women should be quickly investigated. Monstrous behaviour against women should be severely and quickly punished. He said that is the only way that deterrence will be created and that society can be confident. But he is facing accusations here of using this for a bit of political gain. West Bengal, the state, is opposition run. So people are saying, you know, this is a nationwide problem, it's not particular to this state, so actually there's no point having a dig at the local government there. This is much more widespread than that. It is a huge problem across India, and cases of violence against women are on the increase.
And that's very worrying. And Mr. Modi called for the death penalty for such heinous crimes, but the death penalty has been on the books for the past 10 years since that horrific gang rape of a young woman on a bus in Delhi.
Exactly, and actually the last people to be put to death in India, it was in 2020, and it was 4 of the perpetrators of that gang rape on that bus in Delhi. Traditionally in India, according to their constitution, if you are put to death, you are hanged. So they do, you know, by the time it comes to that, you would think that would be a deterrent, but it clearly isn't, because there is a huge number of people sentenced to death. At the moment, there's 561 people on death row in India. A tiny, tiny fraction of those are ever actually put to death. And I think that's part of the problem here, is that although it's designed as a deterrent, it's not actually being carried out. As I said, 4 years ago was the last time that it was used.
And is it known who the culprit is in this attack on the doctor in Kolkata?
So we know that a voluntary worker at the hospital has been detained in connection with this case. No charges have yet been brought. So whether he has been detained, as the main culprit or as part of the investigation, we cannot say. What we can say is there has been accusations of cover-up, of negligence on the part of the authorities. The case has actually been transferred from the local police to the Federal Central Bureau of Investigation, so it is now in federal hands. And this is because the parents of this young woman were initially told that she had committed suicide. It took them several hours to be able to see her body. They'd gone to the hospital, they demanded to see their daughter's body. Several hours later, and of course once they'd seen the body, she had been brutally attacked. There was no mistaking it for suicide, and that was when it was revealed that she had indeed been raped and murdered. And that admission was made by the hospital. But there was the initial attempt at the cover-up, which has angered people even more.
And we've seen some of that anger, a wave of protests across India. What do the demonstrators want to be done?
Well, they want several things. Obviously, they want the protection of women, but the largest march we saw was last night. And it's called Reclaim the Night because, okay, this happened in a hospital, we saw instances on buses, but one of the biggest problems in India is that women simply cannot walk the streets at night safely. It's just not possible for them. So the protesters are demanding that change. They say they have every much right to be outside as men. Parents shouldn't have to worry whether their daughters are going to arrive home safely or not simply because it's gotten dark. We saw young people out, we saw elderly people on this march. Men were also welcomed on this march. It was predominantly women, but men were welcomed. The only segment of society that was not welcome was politicians, and the organisers were very clear about that. They didn't want any politicians there. They asked for no political flags to be brought. Huge amounts of anger. Some described the size of the march as unprecedented with the amount of women that came out. And I mean, it's not the first of this kind that we've seen, but they say they want this to be a symbol for the future.
And beyond the demonstrators themselves, what are people in India making of the fact that this kind of attack could happen in a hospital?
There's real anger there because they say, this woman had gone there to heal people and she was brutally attacked. She had finished a 36-hour shift. She had gone into an empty room to just try and get some rest, and her body was found on a podium, brutally assaulted, naked. So there is huge amounts of anger on this, not just on behalf of the general population, but doctors also out on strike, demanding that a law protecting them, specifically protecting doctors, is enacted. It's been on the books since 2022, but it hasn't been enacted. There have been promises by the government to do that. Some doctors have returned to work. Others say that they will stay out indefinitely on strike until things change.
And you mentioned earlier the issue of what appeared to be a cover-up at the outset. Is there faith in the capacity of the police and judiciary in terms of accessing justice for sexual crimes?
I don't think there is. I think if people really believed that justice could easily be won, we wouldn't be seeing the huge protests that we're seeing. I think part of the problem is it's not just justice that people want, but they want a culture shift, they want an education shift, because this is such a large problem that actually things need to sort of change from the root of the issue rather than it needs to be preventative rather than punishment, and that's what a lot of people are saying. They want things to change in India.
Faith, thank you very much indeed. Faith Orr is Arise international correspondent.